As Chris said, my name is Katie Kane. I'm an associate editor at the University Press of Mississippi, and I'm very happy to be here today to introduce author and scholar Fred Smith. Let me first thank everyone for being here. Thanks to Chris and the Mississippi Department of Archives and History, our colleagues at Liberia. So Fred is a Mississippi boy. He received his bachelor's and his master's from Mississippi State and his PhD from Southern Miss. His work has appeared in a variety of places, including the Journal of Mississippi History, Agricultural History, and the Southern Historian. And he was a contributor to Justice and Violence, Political Violence, Pacifism, and Cultural Transformation. This book, Trouble in Goshen, Plain Folk, Roosevelt, Jesus, and Marx and the Great Depression, tells the story of three American Goshens, the Tupelo Homesteads, the Dyess Colony, and the Delta Cooperative Farm from my neck of the woods, Marlborough County, created to promote prosperity and identity in rural and impoverished areas. Hearkening to the great land of Goshen, these experiments were long on promise and tragic in their failures. I first met Fred in 2012 working on this book, and every interaction I've had with him since has been a true delight. Always curious, forthright, and downright funny, working with Fred has never felt like work. His genuine love for history and desire to learn is infectious and inspiring. It is with great pleasure I introduce my friend, Fred Smith.
Well, first order of business, I think, is dispense with the lies, correct the truth. All those good things you heard about me, not a word of it. They have been trying to keep me from coming up here and talking about my book ever since it was published. I've been dying. This is the first invite I've got. See, I snapped at the chance. As someone here earlier mentioned, and I hear this all the time, well, Fred, that's not much of a book, but damn, that's a great title. I'm sorry, I have to agree. This is one of the finest titles, even if I wrote it myself. But I thought a good way to start this presentation was to give you an idea of why this title is apt. And I think that will also help explain the vision of the book. Trouble in Goshen. Those of you who know about the English Bible know that old Joseph was a pretty crafty character. He negotiated a deal with Pharaoh, 20% on fifths, as the Delta proper might say. That's what they were. These folks, struggling to sustain themselves, were sharecroppers. And so it's not always an evil institution, is it? Well, it turned sour for the people of Goshen. Now, I could absolutely break an analogy by pointing out the spiritual connections between the people of Goshen in the early 20th century, but that would be wrong to do that because it has nothing to do with the rest of the story, except for this. The people who came to these Goshens came primarily because they had no other choice. It was the only choice available for them, and that's why they came, and that's why the experiments were so hopeful, so promising, and yet why their dissolution was so tragic. I had some, that's what I'm looking for, I'm not scratching myself. The first word after the colon, of course, is plain folk. What do I mean by that? Well, my interest in plain folk started because, quite frankly, I was provoked. I was innocent. I happened to read when I was at Mississippi State, by the way, at age 49, it only took me 37 years to earn my BA. I was not a particularly precocious student, but longevity, persistent. While I was trying to figure out something to write for Dr. Dam's historiography course, I came across some things that really upset me. For the first time in my life, I read Erskine Caldwell, Tobacco Road, God's Own Lake. And those characters were absolutely abhorrent to me. They were aberrant people. And that's how he characterized people of the South. And just when I got all hot and bothered about that, I happened to read American Mercury. You know, the journal published by H.L. Mencken, whom you may know of from Scopes Monkey Trial fame and Psycho and Vanzetti, etc. Really a literate person, really a smart guy, but a real jerk too. In one of his articles, the 50 American states, Mississippi was among the worst American states. This was in the 1930s. Because, he said, of its hordes of barbaric peasants that made up its population. Well, I was outraged. I didn't think I was a barbaric peasant. He thought so. That led to discussions about plain folk. I happened to read Frank Owsley's Plain Folk of the Old South. Some of the scholars with whom I had the great privilege to deal with knew something about Southern history. Martha Swain, you may know her. I dare say she knows a thing or two about Southern history. And Chuck Bolton, who worked with me, and Louis Kiriakis. What does that word really mean? How do you get your hands on the concept of plain folk? Were they uneducated? Were they just not being prosperous? What do we mean by plain folk? And I was struggling because I wanted to deal with this matter because of what Erskine Caldwell said, and especially H.L. Mencken, to really try to see what these folks were about and how their lives were affected. And the Lord intervened to help me. He sent the Great Depression. Great Depression. Time of absolutely panic, hopes absolutely destroyed, dreams crushed, and most importantly, people's small grasp on the last remaining vestiges of middle-class existence and decency seemed to be whisking away. That's where I found my plain folk. I found my plain folk because they were congregated, and it so happened, as you know, those of you who know about the Great Depression and the Roosevelt administration's efforts to do something about it, there were numbers and numbers of projects with all kinds of outcomes in mind, but the three projects that I was able to unearth, that I was exposed to, turned out to be the most representative of three distinct strands of economic and political thought. They are the Tupelo homesteads, a small 24, 25, then 35 house community on the outskirts of Tupelo, Mississippi. It was a product of the Division of Subsistence Homesteads. The second project was one of the resettlement administration's most famous, the largest resettlement administration project, the most problematic, Dice Colony, Arkansas. Huge, huge undertaking, and we'll talk about that soon. And the third was my favorite. It was the most promising and most disappointing of all. And that's one that, there's only one other article at the time I began my research that was written on this. Only one, that was by a professor from Delta State, as you might imagine. The third project is the Delta Cooperative Farm. Folks, this was a biracial cooperative farm in the very middle of the Delta, run by a partnership between, listen to this, liberal Christians and the Socialist Party of America. Did you know that such a thing existed? I didn't either. I got to get me some of that, they used to say for you. But the second term, and that's why I have a broad populace of plain folk here, you see. Not only that, none of these three distinct communities were the epitome of what they represented in terms of the nation. They absolutely catered to three distinct levels of economic problems. The people at Tupelo, because of the regulations requiring making certain requirements on the participants, were not poverty-stricken. They were poor folks, or excuse me, forgot where I was. They were poor folks. But they weren't poverty-stricken. Many of them had worked at jobs full-time, many of them had some assets, but they qualified, and when they saw a chance to move into these new homes, and I'll tell you more about those later, they took it to see what would happen next. They did have a problem with hanging on to their identity as middle-class folks, because they were in trouble economically, or they wouldn't have applied in the first place, right? Everybody else was having troubles in the Great Depression too, but these were different kind of folks from the other two sections. But they represented the top tier of southern rural poverty. The next bunch of folks, the ones that Dice County, and I'll get to the specifics a little bit more, were, once again, because of the requirements of the program, they had to prove and to demonstrate and to accept the fact that they were failed farmers. the stigmas of all three projects. These plain folk had to come and submit themselves to the bureaucracy of the new, well-meaning folks, liberal folks, but arrogant, prideful, and these folks had to kowtow to their inspections, questions, etc. Get into more of that too. These folks came to Dias College because it looked like a chance. By the way, let me just say this about Dias College. Many of you in school and since then are familiar with the term American yeoman farmer. Thomas Jefferson's notion of a disinterested political class that since they didn't work for anybody, were free to have the interest of the community and the nation at heart, not their own. They were virtuous people. That's what he meant by the term virtuous. And they were free, and they provided. This was an attempt at Dias Colony, unlike nowhere else, to recreate that. They were going to take 500 farmers or families that had failed economically, and put them on the richest land, arguably, in the world, and provide them with new and seed and management. And they were going to make self-sustaining yeoman farmers out of them. You'll see why that couldn't possibly work. It did not work. The third group, my pet, and the one that's least known about, although Fannie Lou Hamer did create a Delta cooperative farm in the Delta later, and oftentimes that is confused with this one. It's not the same one, they're not even connected. Delta Cooperative Farm was a place for people to come to, black and white, who had absolutely no place else to go. No hope. They were dispossessed sharecroppers. Now, let me diverge a little bit from this entertaining introduction and give some boring details or remind you of things that you know already. The terms, and I addressed this in the first of the book, what do you call these people? Call them farmers? No, farmers make decisions. Farmers decide what seed to plant and when to plant it and when to harvest it and where to sell it and all those things. What about unlanded farmers? There again, first of all, it's a clumsy term, and I'm an eloquent writer, so I won't be. It's a clumsy term, but you've also got that word farmers. They were not farmers. They farmed, but they were not farmers. They didn't have the management decisions to make. What were they then? Well, except for the people of Tupelo. The scholarly term, I think, and please don't get insulted with this, but the scholarly term, the apt term, the right term to use was the term peasant. Peasants. These people were tied to the land. They had no say in the management of the land. They had no say in marketing. They had no say. They were told what to do. It was, sharecropping, as you all know, was, for the most part and for most places, just another form of slavery for black folks. But more and more and more white folks find themselves in exactly the same situation. So Delta Cooperative Farm was meant to be and was a biracial community. At first, 12 black families, 7 white, built houses facing each other across the road, and then proceeded to conduct the most radical experiment, I say, in American history, if you'll think about it. Where it was, who they were, and what they were trying to do. Reinhold Niebuhr was the spokesman for the group. He was the famous one. He got all the press. Reinhold Niebuhr was America's foremost theologian and intellectual of the day. We're talking about the 30s here. He was joined by Sherwood Eddy, who also made a name for himself with the YMCA. He traveled the world, spoke to Benito Mussolini, spoke to Stalin, spoke to people in Japan, wrote meditation books, a real do-gooder, and he really was. And Sam Franklin, who was a missionary in Japan, came back. He got interested in the sharecropper plight, as did A.E. Gene Cox from Texas. He saw a vision that said GPC, and he thought that meant go preach Christ. And William Emerson said, no, that means go pick cotton. I said, I'm glad Dr. Swain's not here today because she would chastise me for telling the story. That's it. That's a little rundown on what the projects were. Now I'd like to tell you some more stuff about them, if I might. Because I can see from the looks on your face that I'm absolutely wearing you out, This is what Dias Administration Center looks like. Dias, Arkansas, in Mississippi County. Mississippi County is the largest county in the state of Arkansas. It was, at the time, the #1 county in the nation in terms of cotton production, i.e. lint per acre. And they went out and actually measured the depth of the topsoil on this plot, and it measured from 40 to 100 feet deep.
Wow.
It was bisected by the Tyrone River, and it was absolutely cut over swamp wilderness. And it was brought into production by the resettlement administration. I figure out how to operate this. So that's what the administration, you may have heard about Dias Colony lately, because that was the boyhood home of Johnny Cash. He lived in one of those, and they have Arkansas State University located that house, identified it, and they restored it. So now you can go to Dias, Arkansas, and that's a refurbishment there, and see some of the ancillary service buildings that exist at the town of the colony and Johnny Cash's home place. Did that work? That is what a Tupelo homestead house looks like. Isn't that pristine? Got a couple others to show you. There again, there you in the road. Give them that there. Some more. Turn it off. I guess we can see those again. I don't have a picture of the Delta Cooperative Farm. I had one, but it didn't have quite resolution, so I can provide those at some point. So where do we start? First of all, back to my comment about peasantry. Most of you have heard more about the AAA than you ever want to know, the Agricultural Adjustment Administration, and the act that formed it. But the really important thing for our purposes here is what that did to people at the bottom end of the scale. As you know, the Agricultural Adjustment Act and its administration took cotton out of production. The notion was overproduction was causing the price of cotton to fall, and by removing from production and paying people who took it out of production a rental on the property taken out of production, they could somehow mollify the situation and cause the price of cotton to rise, which it did to some extent, from 5 cents to about 12 cents. But whether or not you got part of that payment, that quote parity payment, depended on whether or not you were a real sharecropper or a farm laborer. Tenants had property rights in the parity payment. If you reduced the amount of land that one of your tenants farmed, then that tenant was subject to getting some of the parity payment in exchange for that loss of land. But if you were a farm laborer, you didn't get anything. And so immediately, upon the installation of the AAA, guess what creditors did? What would you do? They managed to get many of their tenants' statuses changed from that of tenant farmer or sharecropper to that of labor. People were evicted, and the number of evictions are just incredibly high. They are, and we'll get into that when I talk about dice. But that's very important, because it brings me back to my term that's also misunderstood and confused, at least for this time period. What do we mean by tenant farmer? Well, there's not one standard identity. It depends on the customs, it depends on the social way. In some cases, it even depends on the crop. But tenant farmer, sharecropper, indistinct terms. That was part of my problem of finding my claim code and identifying. So the populations of both Dias and the Delta Cooperative Farm were those people who had been evicted. They had been kicked off their place, and in case of the Delta Cooperative Farm, they didn't have any place else to go. Now let me get with the Tupelo homesteads quickly in the narrative, and then I'll try to make some sense out of it. FDR, and this is the title of the book, Plain Folk. I told you about Plain Folk. You know who Roosevelt was. FDR. FDR was the brainstormer behind the notion of the division of subsistence housing. As you will know, remember from the studies of the Great Depression, the problem was that, agricultural prices had gone down, but they couldn't sell anything industry produced either. The imbalance between industrial production and consumption was enormous. And Roosevelt, and I am paraphrasing here and simplifying certainly, got to thinking one day and he said, what if we could take people who are having a tough time making it, people who aren't employed full time, and put them on a piece of property and provide them with a pig and a milk cow and some chickens and berry bushes and plums and whatnot and whatever, and let them provide for their subsistence and work part-time. Then they could use that money that they have now, which they don't have now, but they would have it successful, and they get part-time work and they could buy stuff that manufacturing. That's simplified on it. But underlying that was a lot of economic thinking from people such as Simon Patton, what was his name? Yeah, from Columbia University, and Rexford Tugwell. Rexford, the Red Tugwell. He was a bank grain structure, but he was an agricultural economist, and so was M.L. Wilson, Melvin L. Wilson in Montana State. And so they theorized, especially Tugwell, that this is obviously, this Great Depression is signaling a change in our economic status. It's signaling a change in our economic future. Because no more, it's obvious to me, said Tugwell, that people won't be working full-time anymore. There's not enough hours in the day. There's not enough manufacturing jobs to go around. What are we going to do? And we've got these problems because the industrial production is concentrated in masses in cities. And it's crowded and stinks. And what we need to do is send people back and have them subsistence farm, and perhaps industry will relocate there. Perhaps, industry will become piecemeal. Assemble an engine here and the drivetrain there and that sort of thing. That was the thinking. Because Tugwell was insistent that all the economy needed was technology. Technology and superior management by experts. Melvin L. Wilson, his colleague in that process, wasn't quite as sure of that, but he thought land usage was really land needed to be planned. The usage really needed to be planned because of the obvious failures of what was going on at the present. That was the underlying thinking behind the division of subsistence housing. And it was a very tiny division, didn't last long. They completed a total of 44 projects. Some of them were people who had failed farms. There was a farm community. One of them here in Mississippi, by the way, one of 5 that were fully completed, it registered. You've seen the sign there. That's a pretty historic place. But there were 5 that best embodied the notions of Roosevelt and Tugwell and M.L. Wilson. Of the 24 industrial homesteads, and this is what these were, 5 of them were in Mississippi. One at Tupelo, one at Meridian, one at Laurel, one at Macomb. One or two. I may be leaving out one, I'm not sure. Well, other than Tupelo, they all fell pretty much immediately. Many of them, the projects were never started. Many of them, when they got the houses built, nobody would rent them. And so they were sold. They were sold off peacefully. There's one other community of those 24 industrial homesteads that still retains something like its intellectual, its architectural integrity. And that's at Crossville, Tennessee, the Cumberland Homesteads. It was much bigger than Tupelo Homestead, but it was not built for the clientele mainly envisioned either. The people who lived at Cumberland were failed farmers. They were people who had worked in timber. Their jobs just disappeared. But Tupelo fit the description. And because FDR had promised this was not going to be a relief program, it was not going to be charity. People had to show that they were competent folks. They had this incredibly complicated series of schedules and applications they had to fill out. And the local folks took over. They helped decide where the land was, what they were going to buy. They decided who was screened, whose application should be passed on higher up for entrance. It's also interesting to note that in Tupelo you get some things you might not expect. When the people went around to see if they could secure any possible property to buy, they found that the Tupelo Country Club was anxious to sell their property to the government. I found that in the archives. Incredible. Minutes to me. Glenn McCullough. You may have heard of Glenn McCullough. Which one? Well, both of them. Glenn McCullough Sr., Mr. Older Glenn McCullough, deeded or gave a warrant for his property in Tupelo. It's interesting that some 40 or 50 years later, his grandson became head of the TVA. And that's interesting because of this magnificent confluence of things that happened at Tupelo. I know I'm going to get around talking about the people in a minute. I can say, don't give me that look. I reckon I know what I'm doing. Maybe not. Tupelo is really interesting, and let me just fill out my soul here since we're among historians and people who love history. We're about to lose one of the finest remaining instances of the New Deal in Mississippi. Because of circumstances and the way things worked out, like I say, the Lord brought this for my benefit so I could write a book about it. We have in Tupelo the confluence of three distinct New Deal notions, all at the very same place. If you drive up the Natchez Trace Parkway, headed toward north, you will notice on the side the headquarters, Natchez Trace Parkway. If you look real carefully, probably can't see it, but in the back, there's a house back there. Grew up in Tupelo, and I always wondered about that. Never could get an answer. How did Across 45, there's some more houses. They don't look exactly like that. That's the Tupelo homesteads. What happened was, because the Tupelo homesteads were not successful in forming a homeowners association that saw fit for its renters, that's what they were at the time, to obligate themselves to 40-year mortgages for a property they thought was overpriced. Nobody bought a homestead. They had the opportunity to rent for a while, and nobody exercised that option. And so the property began to be just a place for transient workers to use, some of which came from working on the Tennessee Valley Authority, because they were building this huge line. Some of whom came from the workers working on the Natchez Trace Parkway. The TVA entered into an agreement with the Tupelo homesteads to move the position of the trace so it will encompass the property. And there at the Tupelo homestead, right there on the old Natchez Trace, right there behind the headquarters, you have the confluence of the TVA, subsistence housing, subsistence housing, say that 5 times real fast, subsistence housing division, and the Natchez Trace Parkway. Those houses, for the most part, there's been some modifications over the years, added some windows, done some things to the porches, but for the most part, those houses are like they were when they were built in 1934. That is astounding. It's the only that exists, and it's in rapid decline. The National Park Service does not seem to be all that interested in preserving it, and I just pointed out to you for your consideration. We need to do something about that. Interesting things happened there. As the Park Service began to exert its authority over the management of the homestead, there became some friction amongst the people who lived there and the Park Service guys. One day, Mr. B.M. Anthony was out with his wife conducting target practice on an oak tree on his property, and he got interrupted by a ranger. And he didn't take it very well. He allowed him to do the ranger's damn business what he was doing on his property, and didn't appreciate it. The ranger had to describe to him that now let's go on from the Natchez Trace Parkway, Interior Department, you can't have guns, you can't put that cow in there anymore either. Several things, and so the transition was pretty much smooth until people finally quit renting to the last renters in 1954. The houses were planned with great care. In my master's thesis, I have a big long list of all the bushes and varieties of plants and equipment and the size of the milk bucket and the milk stool and all the things, the accoutrements of the homestead. They had a dog run, a pigsty, each had a pig, a shote. Many of my colleagues at State, younger than I, didn't know what a shote was, and I was really glad to show off, because I did. a milk cow, these would be self-sufficient people. Didn't last long. People had better places to go. Tornado in Tupelo created a pretty good path of destruction. The homesteads weren't affected, but they had an immediate localized building boom, and all of a sudden, houses came on the market. They were better constructed, better materials, better buys, and people left. They left because they could. They were exercising that option, which it would have been. And another funny thing, if you look at the record, you'll find out that these people at Tupelo weren't exactly the folks that FDR envisioned. He said that he expected the people to be hardworking, good character, which was true to people at Tupelo, but he expected them not to be employed full time. That was technically not true. People at Tupelo, of all divisions of subsistence house homesteads, had the fifth highest level of income. They weren't going to stay at the bottom end class of middle class respectability. And so when they had chances, they moved. It is good that there was a good use for that property by the government. It's not good for private thing. Dyess County is a different story. Dyess Colony. It was established by the Arkansas Rural Rehabilitation Corporation. That's another one you can say 5 times real fast. Every state had its RRC. Arkansas got a grant from the Federal Emergency Relief Administration to do some good. And there was a very interesting fellow named William Reynolds Dyess. He was from Hazelhurst, Mississippi originally, served in the war, was an adjutant to Blackjack Pershing, taught the military school for a while, came back to Hazelhurst, and went to the Arkansas Delta, where he took the skills that he had learned from his father, namely road grading, levee building, mule trading, and made a fortune and a reputation for himself along the White and Mississippi rivers in Arkansas. Very dynamic fellow. He became involved with the FARA, the Arkansas FARA, the Arkansas RRC, and then persuaded the FARA, Federal Emergency Relief Act folks, to give him a huge grant in order to establish a project that's later known as Dyess Colony. At the time, it was known as Arkansas Recolonization Project Number 1. Here's the notion behind Dyess. Look, folks. Arthur Raper over in Georgia, actually from North Carolina, great rural sociology, had to say that, North Carolina at the time. Raper was one of those, how old that book. He had written a book about 2 counties in Georgia dealing with the ravages of agricultural production in that state, particularly cotton. And Arthur Raper pointed out that there were some things that made it impossible, it seemed, for folks in Georgia, small planters, small farmers, to make a living on cotton. Number one is the damn boll weevil. It devastated crops. It's amazing we have no sense of that these days. Secondly, the erosion. When it rained in Georgia on those hills, the land just washed away like crazy, you know, and the soil was thin to begin with, red clay. And third, there was the financing situation that was abhorrent. It was radical. People couldn't get out of debt once they got in debt. Arthur Raper bemoaned this fact. As a matter of fact, he wrote a book, and the title of it is one for which I stole part of my title. Preface to Peasantry. It's the name of his book. And he was talking about his Georgia sharecroppers. Well, what if we could take all those things out of those 3 things out of the picture? What if we could do something about the boll weevil? What if all of a sudden erosion wasn't the problem? And what if we had reasonable financing costs? And let us suppose that we could take people who knew how to farm and furnish them with a good house and a mule or 2, and gave them access to 20 to 40 acres of the most fecund agricultural land in the world. Reckon that would work? What they wanted to do was to recreate this mythical yeoman farmer. The one who could take the government's help to start, and by the labor of him and his family, take that rich ground and make enough money on cotton and grow enough subsistence to live a middle-class and respectable life. Gosh. I've been for it, me. I think. Wouldn't you? But here's the kicker. The Delta is not like, y'all may not know this, I expect you all do. The Delta's not like the rest of the state of Mississippi. No. It's not the rest of the state of Arkansas. Not. And the thing about the Arkansas project was, it wasn't going to be just for people who lived in the Delta of Arkansas, who knew how to farm that black land, that thick land, how to deal with snakes and mud and all the problems that do come with the Delta sometimes. It was for people from the entire state. And you had to apply. And based on what your rural rehabilitation counselor said, boy, got that out that time, didn't it? Said that you might or you might not get in as one of the clients that dies. And if you were looking for a job, you might or might not get on. One of the real pleasures I had while researching this book was going to the archive. I meant to say a word about this today. I'm sorry, I have to stop. Time out. This is a commercial break. I'm particularly delighted to be here because it's the archives. Anybody who does any historical research at all owes life and soul and very blood to the people who manage and conduct the archives, who gather the materials, who arrange it, who put up with people like me. Yeah. And I am really grateful to the Mississippi Department of Archives. And I got to tell you, I'm kind of far from the Mississippi Department of the University Press of Mississippi. I haven't written a whole lot of books. This is only one. So I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert in how things ought to be done. But I suspect it's very much like they treated me. Because it was nothing but a pleasure. They were helpful. I like Katie because she laughs at my jokes. She's also smart as well. Let's leave it go there. But I really owe a lot to University Press. Mr. Hilliard, is he still there? There he is. Mr. Hilliard doesn't know he has more to do with this book than you might think, because he and I argued over whether or not the crowd of 75,000 that took up to see FDR was a reasonable guess or not. We debated that, talked about that. We tried to figure out if the name of Hill House, Mississippi, where the Delta Cooperative Farm was Hill House, 2 words or one, and we got that figured out. And he was very encouraging in a lot of ways. And I appreciate it more than you know. I really do. Where was I before I was interrupted by the commercial?
Delta's different, they're bringing it.
Yeah, the Delta's different. It really is. Thank you. I appreciate it. First of all, where do we start? The ground is incredibly rich. You all know that. But depending on where you are in the Delta, by the way, I have about 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 pages in this book about the strangeness of the Delta, not the people, but the land itself, etc. But the land, depending on where you are, it can be problematic. As a matter of fact, in the interior of the Delta, the basins, you often get what is called, or was called at the time, by the people who worked at buckshot ground. Now, buckshot, whoo, man, you talk about devilishly hard to deal with. In the spring, when it rains, it'll suck you up and drown you, man. You can't hardly get away from that stuff. In August, when it's hot and dry, you have big old cracks in the earth, you know, look like canyons down there. As a matter of fact, one folktale involved an Arkansas farmer said he lost 2 mules in 1 year. Yeah, one drowned in the spring when he marred up in the mud, the other fell in a crack and hadn't been heard from since. That's what he said. It was different. Just because you could grow tomatoes in Springdale, Arkansas, did not mean that your hand was going to be very good at growing cotton in the Delta. As a matter of fact, Oscar Johnson and his cotton plantation after that great 1927 flood, and being more progressive than most planters, wanted to make sure that his sharecroppers had food, and so he gave them plots to raise their food, and guess what he found out? Didn't know how. Didn't know how to grow it, didn't know how to plant it, didn't know how to take care of it, didn't know how to harvest it, and didn't know how to cook it or preserve it. So, yeah, this is in the Delta now. So he hired some graduates from Alcorn A&M to come and teach folks how to do that. So it was not what we hear oftentimes about sharecropping planters, you know, giving them land for the vegetable gardens. That's true in some places. It's not in the other, and it was not true in the Delta. The land was too rich, too valuable. I don't know where I was going with that. Nothing absolutely at all to do with what I was talking about. Anyway, there's some of the stuff in the book. I mean, that's why you might want to get the book. Dyess Colony was supposed to be one of a bunch of colonies like that, where people who had failed, and to get into Dyess, you had to prove that you had failed. You had to be a client of the Rural Rehabilitation Corporation, which meant that you had to qualify in the first place. Now, for a brief while at Dyess, before the procedures were really nailed down, gosh, I'm going to hurry. One might write and might have some influence in getting on or getting in. Getting on, finding a job in one of the ancillary businesses. They had everything about it. Ice house, swimming pool, service station, store, all kinds of things they needed in the town center. So people tried to get on, tried to do their jobs. Other people tried to get in. But here's what I'm going to tell you about that. I finally reconciled my anger with Erskine Caldwell because I got to read letters written to Dyess, to Delta Cooperative Farm, and to Tupelo Homestead. They were letters from poor folks. There were letters from really poor folks. There were letters from white folks. There were letters from black folks. There were letters from people who were destitute. And you know what? These weren't at all like the people Erskine Caldwell described. They were smart. They were industrious. Yeah, their spelling may be a little creative. The syntax may be out of place too. But some of that, and I was going to read you one of these letters, but I can see right now I don't have time. Really impressive. These were salt of the earth people who had no place else to go. Let me quickly say that the demise of Dyess had to do with political infighting. If you want to see a good picture of what a New Deal bureaucrat really looked like, take a look at Floyd Sharp at Dyess Colony. That guy had it on, going on, man. He was second importance and control over his project, maybe only to the Secretary of Agriculture. WPA, PWA, he was above all that, and he maneuvered to make it that way. And it's fascinating. It's fascinating. And what he did, I'm sure others. Lawrence Westbrook probably made around $280,000 a year in today's dollars because he did consulting business for free of those projects. But those are just little details that I find very interesting. But it demised because of the infighting between the State House crowd in Arkansas and Floyd Sharp and his folks. Delta Cooperative Farm, this combination of socialists, William Ruckroft Anderson, Ronnie Treadway, and the Christians associated on the other side. That's what it became, by the way, two sides. Rhino, Negro, Sherwood, Eddie, Sam Franklin, Gene Cox. Man, it was a great idea. People were given tasks to perform, and they did it. They built cabins. They built houses. The houses at Tupelo and Dyess looked pretty good, At Tupelo, they had running water and phone and stuff. They didn't have that at Dyess. They still looked good. At Hill House, where the Delta Cooperative Farm was, they only had one advantage over the other sharecropper houses. They had screens on the windows, which was a big deal. It cost $30 a piece to build those houses at Delta Cooperative Farm. It cost like $1,400 to build those at Dyess and $1,600 on an average basis to build those at Tupelo. By the way, all these two projects, Dyess and Tupelo, when they were done away with, when they were consolidated, the government got about half its money back. So they were expensive. Dyess is particularly tragic today. Because whether or not you like to think so, the people who ran Dyess, particularly the Christian bunch among them, were dishonest. They lied. They had good press. Rhino Liver, you get an article from Rhino Liver, you get a magazine, you reckon you're going to publish it? Yeah, yeah, you are. He was a big dog, man. I still admire Rhino Liver for a lot of things not to do. What happened was the Delta Cooperative Farm bought 1,700 or 2,300 acres of cut-over land. No, not cut-over. Land had been in, part of it was in cypress bottom, part of it was cottonwood. They bought that because William Timken of Canton, Ohio, had given Sherwood Eddie $20,000 to help fund the relief program for the poor French folks in the Ruhr Valley at the end of World War I. All right, that's where the money came from. After the relief was no longer needed, he said, Eddie, just keep the money and do something good with it. So William Ruffroff Amberson, the physiologist at the University of Memphis, met up with H.L. Mitchell, and they began plotting about what they're going to do about this egregious situation in the Delta, particularly, where people were getting kicked off plantations, had no place to go, no food to eat, and no hopes. Man, like cooperative farm. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. And so I'm making sure of this because I got to. The project really became the darling of liberals across the nation. Magazine articles, people used to come down to the Delta Cooperative Farm to watch what was going on, just incredibly impressed with this biracial cooperation in Mississippi and Delta in 1934. Maybe that doesn't strike you as odd. It does me. But they wrote these glowing accounts of how everybody was working in cooperation. Everybody was getting along fine. They were making money hand over fist. They made $30,000 in their first year. The cotton crop was cool. The cooperative store was making, everything was going fine, and it was all a damn lie. What they didn't tell them was the reason the Delta Cooperative Farm survived as long as it did was because of contributions. The people who wanted to see it work. Well, in fairness to them, the socialists got all upset about that, about the lie. You know, so I'm not going to get out. I know many of you now want to rush up here and buy one of these books. But you know, so I don't want to ruin the story for you. But it was a brouhaha. You had people with good hearts and good minds with different notions of how these things ought to be managed. And the result of that conflict was a sad dissolution, I think. One of the most romantic possibilities that existed in the Cotton South in the Great Depression. So that's why I named my book Trouble in Goshen, a reference to Joseph and the sharecropper. FDR, his notions of both yeoman farmers and subsistence homesteads, and Jesus and Marx in the Great Depression South.